Alright, here we go. It's time for me to tell you my 2025 AFL ladder and season predictions. As I say annually, don't take this personally. What I think about your football club is not what I think about you as a person. Starting off with the Crows, and I've got them in a position that I think Adelaide fans would be quite happy with. I've got Adelaide sat in 6th place. There tends to be a couple of teams that rise massively every year, and I've got Adelaide being one of those teams. I love how they've built over this preseason, and I love what they've just been building over the past 5 years in general. Obviously, when Matthew Nicks came to the Crows, it was an absolute car crash, but I feel like we're starting to get to the pointy end of what he's been building at Adelaide over the past 5-6 years. I think they filled a few really nice holes in the off-season. Isaac Cumming, Alex Neil-Bull, and James Peatling are 3 really underrated pickups. Isaac Cumming's injury woes will be a little bit of a concern, but apart from that, Alex Neil-Bullen is such a crafty, high-pressure small forward, and James Peatling so underused at GWS, and he's going to be a great addition to that engine room at Adelaide. He's probably going to force a guy like Rory Laird to the back line. In the preseason, that win the Crows had over the Lions was really impressive, and I know people always use the it's only preseason thing, but I really liked what I saw. Adelaide's engine room is so deep, they can chuck so many dynamics through there at any stage of the game. You've got Isaac Rankin, Jordan Dawson, James Peatling, Matt Crouch, Jake Saligo, even their youngster Sid Draper. They've got so many names they can chuck through there. They've got so many in-game changes they can make, so much dynamism, and yeah, I really think Adelaide will be a force to be reckoned with in 2025. Next up, the Brisbane Lions, and I've got them sitting in 8th place. This call might not be popular with the masses, but I know it's quite a lazy sort of analysis, but I really just do feel like they're going to struggle to fill the void of Joe Daniher. I think losing a premiership full forward is such a big blow, and yes, premiership teams in the past haven't necessarily won flags with that superstar full forward. I mean, a prime example is Melbourne. Their key forwards weren't great. Collingwood's key forwards weren't great when they won it. So it's not like a full forward's the be all or end all, but Joe Daniher was such a vital part of that forward makeup. And you know, a guy like Sam Day isn't really going to fill the void. Levi Ashcroft, who they picked up, is probably actually going to have to work to get into that best 22. I mean, it's a premiership best 22, and while Levi Ashcroft is a fantastic player, even underage, you know, 17 years of age, people were saying he could have played AFL football. I still think he's going to have to work to get in that team. He's an unbelievable talent. Some people are saying he's going to be better than Will, which I think is a massive call. But yeah, I think Brisbane are going to be good this year. It might be a little bit of a regression. I still think they'll have the same hunger, but I think some teams around them may have just improved more than the Lions have. Now for Carlton, and I've got them in 9th spot. Carlton are such a hard team to judge coming into 2025. I mean, you just read out their injury list, and they're already going to be on the back foot to start the season. I mean, it helps to playing Richmond round 1, which should be a 3-4 points, but on the injury list, they've got Alex Chincotta, Charlie Curnow, Corey Durden, Nick Newman, Mark Pittonet, Jagger Smith, and Sam Walsh, who are all the main ones, but they've got some others, so their depth is also being massively tested. Most of their work came in the draft. Obviously, Jagger Smith's a great pickup, but he's not going to be able to play all year. Lucas Campiarelli looks like an absolute gem in that preseason game, and Nick Haynes, I think, is also going to play a really dynamic, versatile role for the Blues this year. I think Carlton's spine is absolutely fantastic, don't get me wrong. If you're building a team of Charlie Curnow, Paddy Cripps, and Jacob Wiedering, you should be in a decent place as a footy club, especially adding Tom De Koning and improving Tom De Koning to those ruck stocks. But for some reason, I can just see Carlton missing out this year. I'm not sure they've got the edge, and it would massively put Michael Voss under pressure. Next up, Collingwood, and I've got them in 5th place. Did some really nice things in the off-season. They obviously lost John Noble, who was the big loss. He wasn't really getting... he wasn't necessarily a locked-in part of that Collingwood best 22 every week. Obviously, he's not even a premiership player, but I think what they did, filling his void on halfback with a player probably double his quality in Dan Houston, who's just come off an All-Australian year, who will miss the start of the season, but that being said, an absolute fantastic player, as well as Tim Membry, who the Triple M forward line in the preseason looked brilliant for the Pies. Yes, they were playing Richmond in the preseason, but I think it's good to take away some things from those sorts of games. I think Craig McRae has had that one regression year after the premiership. I think the hunger will be there within the players again. I mean, this list is so old, they have to be hungry to have one last hurrah at the premiership, and I think this is the year where Collingwood really take a good swing at it. I've got them in 5th purely just because I think there's 4 teams with more quality, not necessarily more hunger. I just think 4 better football sides, but I think the Pies, no matter where they finish in the 8, can really try and push deep into September. Coming in next is Essendon, and I've got them in 17th. I think the bottom of the table is super hard to predict this year, apart from the obvious in Richmond, who are the locked-in consensus 18th pick. West Coast and North, for me, are going to rise a little bit in terms of their quality. I'm not sure the ladder position will reflect that, because for the past few years, there's been such a clear bottom 3, with North Melbourne and West Coast being a prominent part of that. But I think Essendon I just don't have a lot of hope for, and I think the main thing comes down to their coach. I really don't rate Brad Scott as a coach. Yes, he got a decent North Melbourne side to a prelim or two in the early 2010s. He's shown nothing for me at Essendon. Just their game style's a bit bland. They can only keep it up for 5-6 weeks a year. And overall, their consistency will really need to improve if they want to take that next step. I've seen some people putting Essendon close to the 8, but the Bombers are just a really interesting case study heading into this year. I'm really not sure where they're going to sit. And yeah, I'm super uncertain about the Bombers, and I've settled on them having a bottom 2 finish. Dreamtime might be a pretty horrific clash this year. Before we move on from the Bombers, I don't think I can go without shouting out the Cadco forward line. Isaac Kako and Nate Caddy look unbelievable. And yes, that's great promise for the Bombers, but I really don't think that exciting forward line alone is going to lead to successful football for Essendon in 2025. Next up, the Dockers, and I have them in 2nd place. I mean, how far do you want to go with the Dockers? They really only had one void in their list last year, and that was getting a small forward that can sort of pinch it in the midfield, bring a bit of versatility to that forward mix, and that's exactly what we've done. We've only gone and one of the best in the competition at that role. Shai Bolton is a fantastic addition. We've all spoken about it. If you want to hear me speak about Freo week in, week out, I've done a few really extensive previews over on this channel. Freo Faithful, me and Drews started it up a few weeks ago. It's going to have heaps of Freo content throughout the year, so make sure you stay tuned with that channel. That's where all my Freo content is. But speaking now, we are looking so good. I mean, the depth is the best we've ever had. If Josh Tracy goes down, you've got Paddy Voss to fill the void. If Sean Darcy goes down, you've got a serviceable Liam Reedy. That midfield depth is scary. I mean, in the first choice engine room, you've got Brayshaw, Sarong, Young, O'Meara, O'Driscoll, who can run through there as well as playing on the wing. Who, by the way, I think Nathan O'Driscoll fills the void of, Fremantle's transition. They've been stereotypically slumped with is that slow ball movement, boring style, but I think Nathan O'Driscoll is a massive piece in revitalising how Fremantle move the ball, and you already just saw how we're moving the ball in that preseason game against the D's from back to front. O'Driscoll's runs from half back to half forward, getting in the inside 50. He's got a piercing field kick and a piercing shot at goal. I think he's going to be a massive revitalisation for the Dockers in 2025. And then Murphy Reeve will be battling without other mids. He's probably already jumped a guy like Neil Erasmus in the pecking order, and he'll really be vying for a round 1 spot. If not, early in the season, he will definitely be playing a role in that engine room or on half forward or wherever JL decides to put him. But Murphy Reeve is such a quality footballer. Yeah, I love the way he goes about it. So silky, got a few tricks up his sleeve, and yeah, a great pickup who was, looked at for top 5 in most of the mock drafts for a lot of last year. Fell to us at pick 17, and yeah, over the moon to have him. I think the Dockers' time is now. There's no more promise. There's no more, we're too young. The time is now. Our superstars are heading into their early primes, and we've really got to make the most of this. I mean, getting Shai Bolton in the very prime of his career probably shows where we're at as a club. We really have to go all in this year. Hopefully our key pillars stay fit in Sean Darcy, Josh Tracy and Alex Pearce. And hopefully everything holds up and we can make a deep run into September. Next up, the Geelong Cats, who I've got sitting in 4th place. The Geelong Cats just seem to do it every year. I don't really see a world where they don't make top 4. In my early predictions, I had them top of the table. I can very easily see that. I've just had a little shuffle in my top 4. They look absolutely brilliant heading into 2025. I just love the way that club is set up. They've lost a few pieces. Obviously, Zach Tui and Tom Hawkins will be the main two that have been such a mainstay at that best 22 for such a long time at the Cats, but they filled the voids really well. That engine room, which has probably been a weakness for Geelong for quite a while, has just been shaken up by the addition of Bailey Smith, and Max Holmes is going to be improving game on game, year on year. I loved Holmes' year last year. I was really bullish on him last preseason, Max Holmes, and he lived up to my expectation. I'm going to go into an even different level this year. I'm so bullish on Max Holmes. Love the way he goes about it, and I think he coincides really well with Bailey Smith and just the way those two play. They're both two fantastic outside players, and if they can get that great inside midfielder to get in and under, get the ball out to them, I think Geelong are going to be a force to be reckoned with out in the middle, especially if Toby Conway can stay fit and get in the ruck, because Toby Conway is an absolute superstar in my eyes. It looks like they might start the season with Sam De Koning in the ruck. But I think Toby Conway is the future at the Cats in that department. And yeah, I just love the way Geelong go about it, and I don't really see them not having a good year. Next up, the Gold Coast Suns, and I've got them in mediocre land again. I've got them in 11th. It just is a bit of a shame, isn't it? I mean, they've improved their halfback stocks massively, don't get me wrong. John Noble and Daniel Rioli are looking fantastic. As we all say, they've trained the house down, they've had a great preseason, and I'm sure Gold Coast will be really good at that transition off halfback and moving the ball a bit quicker from the back end, which is what Damien Hardwick will want want to do. If you remember Damien Hardwick's teams at Richmond, they never really had any massive accumulators. I think that's the sort of game plan he's going to try and implement at the Gold Coast Suns. I don't think John Noble and Daniel Rioli will be massive rackers of the ball, but they're such good field kicks and they'll be so important in that fast down the guts transition. But look, Gold Coast, as soon as they do something good in the off-season, there's always something bad to come with it. It's sort of just been the history of the Suns. Jack Lukosius is a massive loss, whether that's down back or up forward. Such an important swingman for them, such a good kick of the ball. And yeah, the Suns are going to sorely miss him. If they can get Leo Lombard fit and firing, he's going to be a really welcome, youthful addition to the squad. But yeah, I like where the Suns are heading. But for the, the 15th, 16th year, it's not their year. Honestly, it's just a case of I've got to see it to believe it with the Gold Coast Suns, and they've never shown me anything that warrants a finish higher than 11th. Next up, the GWS Giants, and I've got them in first place. I am expecting the Giants to have a very, very good year. They are going to have a bit of a rough start to the season just with the nature of their injury list. Their injury list is an absolute crime, to be honest. Ryan Angwin, who's a really important part on the wing for the Giants, Tom Green, Jesse Hogan, Jake Riccardi, Toby McMullen, Jake Stringer. It's really not looking good. As well as some of those suspensions, which will really test their depth to start the year from that naughty party they had in the off-season. The Giants will be tested to start the year, but they are going to build. The Giants always seem to peak at the right time of year. They never can really get that far in September, but they always have a good run at it. They usually get to a prelim most years, except for last year. I mean, they were only one kick away from a prelim, but yeah, the Giants tend to contend at the right time of year, and their list is the best it's ever been. I mean, you're going to give extra responsibility to Finn Callahan in that engine room, who is just an absolutely fantastic player. I think he's ready to take his game to the next level. They've got all key areas absolutely stocked up. Sam Taylor might be the best fullback in the competition. Jesse Hogan might be the best full forward in the competition, and Tom Green's got the ability to be the best midfielder in the competition. So their spine is absolutely fantastic. They keep building on that. Adam Kingsley's a really smart coach. He knows how to get the best out of these players. I think the Giants are going to be a force to be reckoned with in 2025. Next up, Hawthorn, and I have them in 13th. Yep, come at me, Hawks fans. Come at me. Look, the position they were missing was a key back. They went and got Josh Bagel and Tom Barrass. I fully understand that, but that was last year when they needed the key back. They are such a young team. They are so incredibly well set up for the future. Hawthorn is the dream list if any club wants to be rebuilding going into the future. The current list Hawthorn have is the absolute dream list. Sam Mitchell is a fantastic coach. They are so young. Hawthorn last year gave me massive vibes of 2022 Freo, where they were just riding the wave, a super young, inexperienced team, taking it week by week, having fun. They might get a bit of a reality bite in 2025. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I think they might need that to propel themselves even further in the future. Sam Mitchell's a great coach. He won't let the hunger deter them. But I just think some of the younger guys, they've got the ability. Look, last year they were getting ahead of themselves, but they were also backing it up on the field, so you couldn't really complain. This year they've got to be really focused and really determined to do the same. Do I have faith they can do that? Not absolutely. To have back-to-back really good seasons with this younger list is super, super rare. Their key forward stocks I don't love. Like, Kao Shadir, fantastic. Love him for the future. But him in a two-headed duel with Mabior Chol, I'm really not sure that's the recipe for premiership success or even final success. Yes, it worked in patches last year and they got a good run going, but they'll really have to get back on one of those running with the wind youthful runs if they're to do anything in 2025. Them finishing 13th might be a bit of a stretch, but there's always a team that drops down massively, and Hawthorn are that team for me. Next up, Melbourne, and I've got them in 12th position. The Ds are really exciting. Like, some of their players are super exciting. We saw in that preseason game how good that trio of Max Gorn, Clayton Oliver, and Christian Petrarca are looking heading into 2025, 4 years after that premiership. Didn't do a whole lot in the offseason. I mean, Harry Sharp's a nice little pickup from Brisbane, and Xavier Lindsay and Harvey Langford both look like a really good, promising young players. But losing a live wire guy like Alex Neil-Bullen, and especially a live wire guy when your club's culture is struggling. Like, yes, Clary looks happy. Yes, Track looks happy. Yes, a lot of the players look happy because they've actually got to permanently change this culture. Like, Simon Goodwin's a part of that as well. Simon Goodwin is under pressure as a coach. Yes, he won them a premiership, and that has bought him a few years. But I think certainly if Melbourne miss the finals this year, like I'm predicting them to, he'll be under a lot of pressure and the club will be asking questions of him. I don't mind Melbourne where they're at, but I just think there are 11 teams better than them. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, you know, they've won their flag, they've gone to a bit of a regression, but they really need to make the most out of these final prime years of Clary, Petrarca, and especially Max Gawn, who is certainly getting towards the end of his career. I think Melbourne can do damage this year, but I have got them in 12th. North Melbourne, I've got them in 15th, which is their highest finish in absolutely ages. In fact, it's their highest finish since 2019, where they finished 12th. So, you know, a best finish in 6 years is what North fans will be hoping for. Yes, it's still bottom 4, and North Melbourne probably should be pushed to higher expectations than this, considering where their list is at. But this is where I've got them, because I just can't find the spots for them any higher. The Roos are a team where I can see them exceeding expectations a lot. I mean, these young guys really need to have to start clicking into gear soon enough. Added with the experienced heads of Caleb Daniel and Luke Parker, who have been there, done that, both won flags. I think they do have the ability to push into a mid-table spot, maybe around the 11th, 12th mark. I do think North Melbourne are good enough, and I think Alistair Clarkson is a good enough coach. In fact, I don't think that, I know that. But again, it's a bit like Gold Coast. They have to show it for me to believe it. I mean, there is no way a team with an engine room of Luke Davies-Uniacke, Tom Powell, George Wardlaw, Luke Parker, Harry Sheasel should be finishing bottom 4. Like, that is serviceable. Mixed in with Tristan Jerry, who was arguably the best ruck in the league last season. My God. They're starting to stock up decently up forward. I mean, Jack Darling's a nice little partner for Nick Larkey while he continues to develop his game. Like, yes, Nick Larkey is 26, but still key forwards do take a little bit longer, and he will hit his prime in the next few years. And I'm sure the Roos won't want to waste that. I think the Roos really need to make that jump. I can't quite see them making a big enough jump than what they probably should be doing with this list, but I do have them in 15th. Next up, we've got Port Adelaide, and I have them in 3rd position. A lot of people have Port towards the bottom of the table, which I find a bit crazy. I'm really bullish on the Power this year. It's Ken's last year. Ken has been at this club for so long. Whether he's won anything or not, he's made a massive impact on these players, and they will be determined to give him something before he leaves. I'm not saying that's a premiership, but I'm saying it's a mighty good effort at one, which they've done so many times under Ken. They lost in another prelim last year, but I really feel like they've sealed the list to be a top 4 team. Jack Lukosius is a massive addition to that forward line. I love the pickup of Joe Richards, who will add a different dynamic to the small forward line of the Power. I think they've drafted really well. I think Joe Berry's a fantastic pickup. Freo were looking at him all draft until the Power came in and snatched him off us. Zach Butters will be missing the first few weeks of the season, which is a massive blow, but I think Connor Rosey and Jason Horn-Francis as deputies isn't bad at all, and I think they will fill the void better than ever for the Power. I love the way they're constructed. I really like their key pillars up and back. I think Jordan's sweet tree to take his game to the next level. And overall, I really like the Port list. I think they'll want to see Ken out on a high. Whether that's a premiership or not is yet to be determined. But I really like Port Adelaide heading into 2025. I can't really understand where the comments are coming from that the Power won't be that good a team this year. Yeah, I like them a lot. I hope they haven't lost that hunger after all these prelims that they've been losing. I still feel like they'll have that hunger. They've still got some experienced heads there, and they've got some absolute quality in that engine room and in the key areas. I think the Power will be a good team in 2025. I've got them in 3rd. Next up, Richmond. Yeah, well, we don't really need to say a lot about this one, do we? They are in a rebuild, and the deepest rebuild we've ever seen, and I am so confident that I can sit here and say Richmond do not win a game of football in 2025. I mean, Liam Baker, Shai Bolton, Jack Graham, Dusty, Daniel Rioli, Dylan Grimes. I mean, it's just an absolute mauling of losses. Drafted fantastically, don't get me wrong. Harry Armstrong, Jonty Fall, Taj Hodden, Sam Lawler, Josh Smiley, Luke Traynor. Richmond will be good, just not this year. I don't really know what else to say. It's also mixed with the fact that I don't rate Adam Uze as a coach whatsoever. So I'm not really sure how a bad coach mixed with young, inexperienced players is going to go. But yeah, Richmond are going to be so bad this year, they won't win a game of football. Cut to them beating Freo in round 5. Next up, St Kilda, and I have them in 14th. And I'd love to have them higher. In my early predictions, I had them in the 8. But injuries have absolutely decimated them. To start the year, they'll be without Paddy Dow, Liam Henry, Dougal Howard, Max King, Mitch Owens, Mateus Filippo, Cooper Sharman, and one of their high draft picks in Alex Toru. They did quite well in the off-season. I like the addition of Jack Carroll. He'll add a darting bit of pace to that Saints winger if they choose to pick him. Jack McRae's looked really good in preseason. Absolute accumulator alongside Jack Steele, who complements each other really, really well. Toby Travalia looks like an absolute gem. And it's got to be said, Hugh Boxall, what a pickup he looks to be. Pick 45, and in the preseason, my God, he looked like a star. The loss of Josh Bell to Hawthorn, as well as Dougal Howard going down with injury, is going to put St Kilda's tall defender stocks into massive jeopardy to start the season. It won't be an easy task whatsoever. I really feel like their start is going to cost them. They might be able to link up a few wins late on in the year when they get all their guys back, but so many long-term injuries, I'm really not sure how the Saints are going to go in 2025. Next up, the Sydney Swans, and I've got them in 7th place. Look, they've done absolutely nothing, to be honest. I mean, Luke Parker wasn't really a mainstay at 22, and they've Swans really added nobody in the offseason. We're pretty much going back with the exact same list as the Swans did in 2024 with the addition of Dean Cox as their new coach. Look, the Swans put together some great football last year. They were by far the best team in the competition for most of it. I really think this grand final is going to hurt them. I'm not saying they'll miss finals because I've got them in 7th, but they're one of those teams that are a bit vulnerable. Their list looks absolutely fantastic. All over the ground. Their mids are amazing. Their ruck's amazing. Their key forwards, I've got a massive question mark about. I quite like their key backs, but again, injuries sort of plaguing them. And that injury of Errol Golden is less than ideal. The Swans are in a bit of trouble in that department. I mean, Errol's such a big part of how the Swans play. That narrow SCG ground, and Errol comes on the inside as a bit of a inside winger almost. I think the Swans are going to struggle for patches throughout the year, but I don't think we'll be a bad enough team to drop out of the 8. I think they can do some damage in September because they've got the experienced enough heads for it. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. I'm not too bullish on Sydney this year. I've got them in 7th. The West Coast Eagles, I've got them in 16th place. Yeah, look, I'm bullish on West Coast. Look, 16th might not sound like it, but I'm really bullish on the Eagles in 2025. Their pickups are absolutely fantastic. Bo Allen, Liam Baker, Sandy Brock looks really good. Jack Graham. Tom Gross has looked fantastic. Matt Owies and Job Shanahan, who has apparently been training the house down. I live in WA, so maybe I'm soaking up too much WA media, but they have all looked really, really good from what I've seen. The massive loss is Tom Barrass because he held down the fort back there for West Coast for so long, and I think they are really going to feel the missing presence of Tom Barrass back there. But they really need to try and get on with it. Andrew McQualls is going to be playing a quick game style from the back, not a lot of accumulation, not a lot of guys beginning like 30 plus touch games. Harley Reid's got a year into his system. He's going to be explosive out in the middle in that fast sort of game style. And Andrew McQualter, while it will take time, which is why I don't think West Coast will be that good this year, it will turn them into a very quick and exciting outfit, even if it doesn't click straight away. The Eagles have drafted well. They've picked up well. Getting those experienced heads in Baker and Graham is more valuable than you can imagine. Mixed in with the great drafting. I like where West Coast are at in the future. I like Andrew McQualter as a coach. I just don't think this is their year. And last but not least, in 10th, I've got the Western Bulldogs. I'm just questioning Bevo. I think this is Bevo's last year. I don't think he's got enough left in the tank. The Bulldogs haven't even been a top 14 for the past 10, 11, 12 years. The Bulldogs haven't been a top 14 in my lifetime, to be honest. Yes, they've won a flag. Yes, they've made it to a grand final apart from that. But they've never been a top 14. They've never been a massive contender. And I just feel like they're going to fall a bit into mediocrity again, and I think Bevo might be asked to move on by the club. I think they did okay in the offseason. I think their two main pickups being Matt Kennedy from Carlton and Sam Davidson looks like an absolute gem. Losing guys like Caleb Daniel, Jack McRae, Bailey Smith. I mean, Bailey Smith didn't play last year, but he's still a big loss. I don't know, I feel like the Dogs are a bit mediocre. I don't love their list. Bont's missing for 6 weeks to start the season, and Bont has dragged the Dogs out of the mud so many times. I'm not very bullish on the Western Bulldogs, unfortunately. I've got them in 10th. Moving on to my grand final. There's no chance I'm putting Freo in my grand final because I don't think I can bear to predict my team in the grand final. If we make the grand final, we'll get to it when we get to it. I've got Geelong and GWS in the grand final, and I've got the Cats winning the flag. I just think they'll be too good this year. They've been here, they've done it before. I trust them. The Giants are very much showing the flag mix, and I think they can rock up on grand final day and be good enough to win it. But I do just think the Cats will add another trophy to their cabinet, unfortunately. Let's speak awards. Coleman, this isn't bias, but it's Josh Tracy. I just love the way he's built in this preseason. He's going to be the main focal point of the Dockers forward line in 2025, which is crazy to think. Like, even in 2023, Josh Tracy was not a key pillar of the Dockers forward line. He only became that last season, and we can already see his promise. He's only 22 years old. He's so strong. He's got such an incredible leap, and he's a dead-eye set shot. And if he can build with Jai Amos, and if Jai Amos can work off him nicely, I really think Josh Tracy is going to reap the rewards of that. And especially if the Dockers are good, I think Tracy can maybe look for a 60-70 goal season. I think the Brownlows are pretty easy this year, which is not something we often say. But with Bont missing the start of the season, who's probably the only other contender, yes, maybe you could chuck a Caleb Sarong in the conversation. But then again, you've got Andy Brayshaw to steal votes off him. It's Nick Dacos. Like, this is Nick's year, surely, and it could be the start of a long winning run of Brownlow medals. He's that good. He's looked that good in the preseason. He's looked that good ever since he stepped foot in the AFL. And, I think Nick is going to piss his way to a Brownlow this year. In Rising Star, I tend to go quite unique with this award. I'm not sure how unique this is, but I've loved the look of Finn O'Sullivan over this preseason for North Melbourne, who was a bit of a borderline player, whether he was going to be best 23 for North. But I watched him in the AAMI game, and my God, I love the look of him. He is such a hard worker. He'll catch the umpire's eyes. He'll catch fans' eyes. He works hard to get from the inside of the midfield to the outside of the midfield, all the way out to the wing. He's a hard runner. He's got a darting foot. And yeah, I love the way Finn O'Sullivan goes about it. He's my rising star tip for 2025. Leave your predictions down in the comments. Leave your thoughts on my predictions down in the comments. Hopefully you don't hate me too much. And yeah, hopefully you all enjoyed this video. I'm so keen for the 2025 season to get underway. Make sure you go check out Free of Faith. We'll link in the description. That's where a lot of my content is going nowadays. The first watch along of the year will be next Saturday. On Saturday morning in WA, Saturday afternoon in the Eastern States for Geelong versus Fremantle. And yeah, thank you all for watching. I'll see you all next time. Cheers.